Don't confuse managing his life with being part of it. Victoria Ashford's voice carried across the private dining room. The conversations around the long table died instantly. Evelyn Parker stood perfectly still, a leather folder pressed against her chest. Around her sat some of the most powerful people in New York, men in tailored suits, women wearing jewelry worth more than Evelyn's apartment, business partners, political donors, men who owed favors to the Blackwood family, and at the head of the table sat the only person Evelyn was looking at, Damien Blackwood, 37 years old, cold, controlled, impossibly powerful. To most of New York, Damien was the billionaire head of Blackwood Holdings, a private empire stretching from real estate to shipping and luxury hotels. But everyone in that room knew there was another Blackwood empire, one that never appeared in newspapers, one that had made the family feared for generations. Damien was its boss. And Evelyn had been his personal assistant for 5 years. She had also been secretly in love with him for almost as long. Victoria smiled. You've been an excellent assistant, Evelyn, probably one of the best, but somewhere along the way, I think you forgot something. Evelyn tightened her fingers around the folder. What? Victoria stepped closer. Your place. Someone at the table looked down. Another man suddenly became fascinated by his phone. Nobody spoke. Evelyn barely noticed them. She was looking at Damien. His dark eyes met hers. For 1 second, she waited. She didn't need a speech. She didn't need him to defend her honor. She needed one word. Stop. That would have been enough. Damien said nothing, and in that moment, something inside Evelyn broke. Not her career, not her pride, something far more dangerous, hope, because Victoria was right about one thing. Evelyn had forgotten her place, and the man she loved had just reminded her. 6 hours earlier, Evelyn had walked into Blackwood Tower at 6:18 in the morning, exactly as she had almost every weekday for 5 years. The 60-story glass building rose over Midtown Manhattan, polished and intimidating. Blackwood Holdings occupied the top 12 floors. No one who worked there asked too many questions about what happened beyond the corporate offices. That was part of surviving around the Blackwoods. Evelyn passed security without slowing. Morning, Miss Parker. Morning, Marcus. Mr. Blackwood got here about 20 minutes ago. Evelyn stopped. Did he sleep? Marcus hesitated. That's above my pay grade. She sighed. That means no. She took the private elevator upstairs. By 6:24, she was in Damien's kitchen preparing his coffee. No sugar, a small amount of milk, hot, but never so hot that he had to wait before drinking it. Damien insisted he wasn't picky. Evelyn had 5 years of evidence proving otherwise. She picked up the coffee, a bottle of water, and the briefing folder for his 8 o'clock meeting. Then she walked into his office without knocking. Almost nobody in New York did that. Damien looked up. You're late. Evelyn checked her watch. By 2 minutes. Exactly. She placed his coffee beside him. Fire me. For half a second, the corner of Damien's mouth lifted. Good morning to you too, Evelyn. She placed the folder on his desk. Your Boston call was moved to 8:30. Legal comes in at 10. The Whitmore meeting is at 11. Your lunch is at 1:30. And before you ask, no, you cannot cancel it. Damien looked up. Excuse me? You heard me. It's my schedule. And yet somehow I'm still the only one capable of protecting it from you. He leaned back. Cancel lunch. No. Evelyn. It's with your father. Damien paused. I know. You forgot. I didn't forget. Great. What are you celebrating? Silence. Evelyn crossed her arms. Exactly. Any other employee would have been terrified. Evelyn wasn't. Maybe that had been her first mistake, or maybe it was the first reason she had fallen in love with him. 42 years ago today, she said more gently, your parents got married. Something changed in Damien's expression. His mother had died 8 years earlier. There were very few subjects the Blackwood family avoided completely. Eleanor Blackwood was one of them. Your dad goes to the same restaurant every year, Evelyn continued. The one where he proposed to her. I reserved his usual table. I moved your 2 o'clock meeting. Damien stared at her. What would I do without you? Evelyn smiled. He had said it dozens of times, always joking. Neither of them knew that very soon Damien was going to find out. You'd drink terrible coffee and forget everyone's birthday. Sounds peaceful. You'd destroy your entire life in 3 days. 2, she laughed. And for a few seconds, Damien wasn't the man half of New York feared. He was simply the man Evelyn knew better than anyone else. She knew he touched his left temple when a headache was coming. She knew the quieter he became, the angrier he was. She knew he hated white roses because they had covered his mother's casket. She knew he called his younger sister every Sunday night. She knew he never ate before a dangerous meeting. She knew October was the month he slept the least. She knew he was terrified of losing his father, even though Damien Blackwood would rather bleed than admit he was afraid of anything. Evelyn knew almost everything about him, except one thing, what he felt for her. Maybe because she had always been afraid of the answer. Evelyn was 29. She hadn't grown up in Damien's world. Her father had been a high school history teacher in upstate New York. Her mother had worked at a small public library. Evelyn had grown up in a house where Sunday meant pot roast, apple pie, and arguments over who had to wash the dishes. There had been no private security, no armored SUVs, no men who lowered their voices when her father entered a room. She had come into Damien's life almost by accident. At 24, she had accepted a temporary 3-month position at Blackwood Holdings. During her first week, she caught a scheduling mistake that would have left Damien stranded in Chicago before a critical meeting in New York. During her second, she quietly resolved a conflict between 2 senior executives before Damien even heard about it. During her third, he called her into his office. "Stay." That was all he said. 3 months became 5 years, and somewhere between early morning coffee, midnight phone calls, private flights, family emergencies, and the rare moments when Damien allowed himself to become human around her, Evelyn made the worst possible mistake. She fell in love. She never told him. She barely admitted it to herself, because Damien Blackwood could have almost any woman he wanted, and Evelyn Parker was his assistant. Nothing more. At least that was what she had spent 5 years telling herself. Then Victoria Ashford arrived. Victoria came from exactly the kind of world Evelyn didn't. Old money, private schools, a penthouse on Fifth Avenue, a family name that opened doors before she reached them. She was beautiful, polished, intelligent, and socially perfect for a man like Damien. Officially, she had been brought into Blackwood Holdings as a senior strategic advisor. Unofficially, everyone understood that the Ashford and Blackwood families would be very pleased if Damien and Victoria became something more. Victoria certainly understood it, but within weeks of entering Damien's world, she discovered a problem. Evelyn. The first time Victoria truly noticed it happened during a private dinner. Damien was scheduled to fly to Chicago that night. A storm was moving across the Midwest. Victoria had asked him to postpone the trip. "You can leave tomorrow." "No." "Damien, they can wait." "No." "Just stay tonight." Damien barely looked at her. "I said no." 10 minutes later, Evelyn entered the room. "You're not flying tonight." Damien slowly raised an eyebrow. That didn't sound like a question. "Because it wasn't." "Reason?" "Storm system over Chicago. Your pilot says the conditions will get worse. I moved the meeting. You leave at 7 tomorrow." Damien stared at her for 2 seconds. "Fine." Victoria never forgot that moment. Mostly because Evelyn hadn't even realized what she had done. She had just told Damien Blackwood what he was going to do, and he had listened. After that, Victoria started watching. Damien rarely asked where something was. He asked, "Where's Evelyn?" He didn't ask whether his schedule could change. He said, "Ask Evelyn." He ignored personal advice from almost everyone, but if Evelyn said, "Call your father," he called. If she told him, "Eat something," eventually he ate. If she looked at him and said, "You haven't slept?" Sometimes he actually went home. Victoria understood the truth before either of them did. Evelyn Parker wasn't merely Damien Blackwood's assistant. She was the only person he had allowed into every corner of his life without realizing he had done it, and Victoria had no intention of sharing that place. That afternoon, Evelyn returned from lunch and found a stranger sitting at her desk. Young, polished, a new laptop open in front of her. Evelyn stopped. "Can I help you?" The woman immediately stood. "Ms. Parker?" "Yes. I'm Sophie Clark." Evelyn waited. Mr. Blackwood's new executive assistant. For several seconds, Evelyn thought she had misheard her. "His new what?" A voice came from behind her. "I hired her." "Victoria." Evelyn turned. "Why?" "Because things are changing." "Does Damien know?" Victoria smiled. "Damien gave me authority to restructure executive staff." Something cold moved through Evelyn. He didn't mention anything. Perhaps because he doesn't believe every decision requires your approval. The insult was deliberate. Evelyn refused to react. "I'll speak to him." She started toward his office. Victoria stepped in front of her. "He's in a meeting." "I know." "You can't just walk in." Evelyn almost laughed. "I've been walking into that office for 5 years. That's exactly the problem." Now Evelyn really looked at her. Victoria lowered her voice. "You've become too comfortable." "I don't understand." "Yes, you do." Her eyes moved over Evelyn's simple blouse before returning to her face. "You behave like you're more than you are." Evelyn felt her stomach tighten. "And what am I?" Victoria smiled. "An employee." Before Evelyn could respond, Damien's office door opened. He stepped out with 2 men. His attention immediately went to Evelyn. "What's going on?" Victoria answered first. "Nothing important." Evelyn looked at Damien. He could have asked who Sophie was. He could have noticed someone else sitting at the desk Evelyn had occupied for 5 years. Instead, he checked his watch. "Evelyn, are the files for tonight ready?" Her instinct took over. "Yes, the black folder is in the SUV, not the gray one. I changed your route because—" She stopped. Victoria was smiling. And suddenly Evelyn realized something. Even while another woman sat at her desk, her first instinct was still to take care of Damien. "Because?" he asked. "Nothing." Damien studied her. "Are you okay?" Victoria answered for her. "She's just surprised by the restructuring." Damien turned toward Victoria. "What restructuring?" For the first time, Victoria looked uncomfortable. "We'll discuss it later." One of the men waiting for Damien reminded him they needed to leave. Damien looked back at Evelyn. "We'll talk tonight." She nodded. "Sure." He left. Evelyn watched the elevator doors close. She didn't know then that those 3 words, "We'll talk tonight," would become the last promise Damien made before everything between them changed. That evening, Blackwood Tower hosted a private dinner. Evelyn had arranged everything: the menu, security, seating, wine, transportation. She knew which 2 men could never sit beside each other. She knew Damien's father needed a chair with better back support. She knew one guest was diabetic, but hated anyone making a fuss over it. She knew another man's wife had died exactly 1 month earlier, so she quietly removed the song that had played at their wedding from the pianist's set list. Details, thousands of details, things so small nobody noticed them, until they disappeared. Evelyn was checking the final briefing folder when Victoria approached. "You won't need that." She took the folder from Evelyn's hands. "Excuse me?" "Sophie takes over Damien's schedule tomorrow." Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. "Did Damien approve that?" "The restructuring? Yes." "My termination?" Victoria paused, then smiled. "I doubt he read every name." There it was. Damien had signed it, maybe without knowing, maybe without asking. But he had signed it. "I want to speak to him." "I don't think that's a good idea." "I didn't ask what you think." For the first time, Victoria's smile disappeared. "Careful, Evelyn." "Why, are you going to fire me twice?" Several people heard. Heads turned. Victoria stepped closer. "I think your problem is that you spent so many years around Damien that you started believing you actually meant something to him." Evelyn froze. Victoria saw it and kept going. "You know his coffee, his calendar, his father's birthday. Very impressive." "Stop." "Why? Because it hurts?" Evelyn looked across the room. Damien had just entered. He had heard enough to know something was wrong. Victoria saw him too, and decided to deliver the final blow. Don't confuse managing his life with being part of it. Silence. "You were his assistant, Evelyn?" Victoria looked her up and down. "That's all?" Evelyn didn't look at Victoria anymore. She looked at Damien. 5 years. 5 years of arriving before him. 5 years of staying after everyone else had gone. 5 years of protecting his family, his secrets, his people. 5 years of loving him without asking him for anything. Damien could end the humiliation with one sentence, but behind him were investors, associates, problems, a dinner he needed to host. And Damien made the mistake he had made too many times. He assumed Evelyn would still be there later. "Evelyn," he said calmly, "we'll discuss this after dinner." That was it. Victoria smiled, and Evelyn finally understood. She unclipped her security badge, placed it on the table. Damien looked down. "What are you doing?" "Saving you the conversation." "Evelyn." 5 years, Damien." Her voice didn't shake. That frightened him more than tears would have. For 5 years I was here before you arrived and after you left. I never asked you for anything. I know. Evelyn gave him a sad smile. No. She shook her head. You just proved that you don't. She picked up her purse. Damien stepped toward her. Don't leave like this. Evelyn looked at him. How would you like me to leave? For once, Damien Blackwood had no answer. Evelyn stared at him one last time. She wanted to say it, I love you, 3 words, 5 years, but she refused to let her love become one more invisible thing Damien received without ever understanding its value. So instead she whispered, Take care of yourself, Damien, and walked away. He stood there watching her go. Victoria hid her satisfaction behind a glass of wine. She believed she had won. She had no idea she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. At 6:20 the next morning, Damien looked toward his office door. Nothing. At 6:21, he continued reading. At 6:22, he checked his phone. At 6:23, he became irritated. Then he remembered Evelyn wasn't coming. He pressed the intercom. Sophie. Yes, Mr. Blackwood? Coffee. 10 minutes later, Sophie entered. She knocked first. That annoyed him. Then she placed the coffee on his desk. Damien took one sip. Sugar. He frowned. What is this? Your coffee. It has sugar. Sophie went pale. I'm sorry, Victoria said. I don't drink coffee with sugar. I'll replace it. Damien pushed the cup away. It was coffee. A stupid detail. It shouldn't have mattered. By 9 o'clock, other details began to matter. 2 meetings overlapped. A confidential visitor was left downstairs because nobody recognized him. A Boston client was called an hour too early. His driver had the wrong address. Then Damien's personal phone rang. His father. Damien answered. Morning. You forgot. Forgot what? My cardiology appointment. Damien closed his eyes. Evelyn had scheduled it months ago. I'll come. You're too late. I'll make time. His father sighed. That isn't the point. Damien was silent. Evelyn used to call me the night before. Damien looked toward the empty desk outside his office. Evelyn doesn't work here anymore. I know. Then why are you telling me? Because she called me last night. Damien went completely still. What? She reminded me about the appointment. After she left? Yes. Damien stood. What did she say? That I shouldn't forget my medication. Did she tell you where she was? No. Did you ask? Damien. Dad. No. Damien clenched his jaw. His father's voice softened. Son, don't be angry with her for leaving. I'm not. Then be angry with yourself for letting her. The call ended. Damien remained standing with the phone in his hand. For the first time, the silence around him didn't feel peaceful. It felt empty. Over the next 3 days, Damien discovered how little he knew about the life Evelyn had quietly maintained around him. He didn't know his father's doctor's direct number. Evelyn did. He didn't know who sent flowers to his mother's grave every month. Evelyn. He didn't know who remembered the birthdays of his oldest employees' children. Evelyn. He didn't know who had created the education fund that paid college tuition for the daughter of one of his men who had died. Evelyn. He didn't know who called the wives of his security staff during long assignments just to reassure them their husbands were safe. Evelyn. And almost none of it had been part of her job. On the 3rd night, Damien found a box in his private archive. On the lid, in Evelyn's handwriting, *DB. Personal inside were folders. His father, his sister, employees, families, birthdays, medical information, small reminders. Damien opened one. Don't schedule anything early on October 17th, anniversary of his mother's death. He'll say it doesn't affect him. It does. Damien stared at the sentence. Another. If Arthur calls twice in one day, put him through. Damien will say he's busy. Ignore him. Despite himself, Damien almost smiled. Then he found a sealed report from 3 years earlier. His expression changed as he read it. One of his own men had secretly been requesting copies of Damien's movements. Damien remembered the incident. His security team had caught the man before anything happened. He had always assumed they discovered it. Then he saw Evelyn's handwriting at the bottom. He's requesting copies of Damien's schedule without authorization. Security needs to investigate quietly. Do not tell Damien until you confirm it. He'll confront him too early. Damien read it twice. She had noticed first. She had protected him, and she had never told him. God. You found the box? Damien turned. His father stood in the doorway. You knew? About that one? Yes. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because Evelyn asked us not to. Why? Arthur Blackwood smiled faintly. Because she knew you. Damien tossed the report onto the desk. Apparently everyone knew me through her. Pretty much. This isn't funny. I didn't say it was. Arthur walked closer. Do you know she found my cardiologist? Damien looked at him. I thought my sister did. Evelyn. The renovations at your house? Evelyn. The scholarship fund? Arthur nodded. Evelyn. Damien stared at the folders. Why? Arthur didn't answer. Why would she do all this? Because she cared about this family. That doesn't explain everything. No. Arthur studied his son. It doesn't. Damien looked at him. Something in his father's expression bothered him. What? Arthur sighed. Son, how can a man so good at reading enemies be this terrible at reading one woman? Damien went still. What are you talking about? Arthur stared at him. Evelyn loved you. The room seemed to lose all sound. Damien didn't move. Arthur continued. She never told me directly. She didn't have to. Dad, everyone could see it. Damien's eyes narrowed. Everyone? Arthur almost laughed. Apparently except you. Damien turned away. Suddenly every memory looked different. The late nights, the phone calls, the way Evelyn always knew when something was wrong. The expression on her face when Victoria humiliated her. Her last words. Take care of yourself, Damien. He swallowed. Where is she? I don't know. Her phone is off. Maybe she doesn't want you to find her. Damien looked toward him. Arthur's expression became serious. If you do find her, don't tell her you need her. Damien frowned. The company does need her. That's exactly why you shouldn't say it. Arthur touched the box. Evelyn already knows you need her. He walked toward the door. The question you need to answer is whether you want her. Damien remained alone. That night, for the first time in his adult life, the most feared man in his world admitted something he couldn't control. He missed her. Not her calendar, not her efficiency. Her. The following evening, Damien stood outside Evelyn's apartment. He knocked. Nothing. Again. Evelyn. Silence. I know you're angry. Nothing. He closed his eyes, then said a word very few people had ever heard Damien Blackwood use when asking for something. Please. A door across the hall opened. An older woman looked at him suspiciously. Are you looking for Evelyn? Yes. She's gone. Damien's stomach tightened. Gone where? I don't know. When? Yesterday morning. With luggage? All of it. Damien looked toward Evelyn's locked door. Did she say when she was coming back? The woman shook her head. I don't think she is. For several seconds, Damien said nothing. Then his phone rang. Victoria. He ignored it. A message appeared. We need to talk. Damien looked at Evelyn's door. No, there was only one conversation he wanted now, and he had no idea where to find the woman he needed to have it with. 3 days later, an envelope arrived at Blackwood Tower. Damien recognized the handwriting immediately. Evelyn. He tore it open. Inside was a key, the key to his private archive, and a tiny note. I forgot to return this. I'm sorry, Evelyn. Nothing else. Damien turned the envelope over. The postal stamp gave him the first clue he had received since she disappeared. Vermont. He stood so quickly his chair rolled backward. Sophie. She appeared at the door. Yes, Mr. Blackwood? Cancel everything. For today? Damien grabbed his coat. For as long as necessary. Where are you going? He looked once more at Evelyn's handwriting. To find someone. But Damien didn't know that hundreds of miles away, Evelyn was sitting in her aunt's quiet kitchen, finally saying aloud the truth she had hidden for 5 years. I loved him. Her eyes filled with tears. I loved him when he didn't see me. I loved him when other women walked into his life, and I was the one making their dinner reservations. Her aunt reached across the table and took her hand. Evelyn shook her head. And if he finds me now? She wiped her cheek. I'm afraid I'll go back. Because you still love him? Evelyn closed her eyes. Yes. At that exact moment, Damian Blackwood was already on his way, but this time he wasn't coming to bring back his assistant. He was coming because he had finally begun to understand something far more frightening. For 5 years, Evelyn Parker had quietly built herself into every part of his life. And only after she disappeared did Damian realize that somewhere along the way, she had become the woman he loved. The drive to Vermont took nearly 5 hours. Damian Blackwood barely noticed any of it. He sat in the back of the SUV with Evelyn's envelope in his hand, staring at the tiny note she had written. "I forgot to return this. I'm sorry. Evelyn?" He had read it at least 20 times. There was nothing emotional about it. No accusation, no goodbye, no mention of the 5 years they had spent together. And somehow that made it worse. For 5 years, Evelyn had left notes everywhere, on his desk, inside briefing folders, beside his coffee, eat before the meeting, call your father, your sister's birthday is Friday. Do not tell me you remembered. You didn't once. 4 years earlier, she had written, "If you skip lunch again, I'm ordering something embarrassing and telling everyone you chose it yourself." Damian had kept that one. At the time, he hadn't known why. Now he did. Because somewhere along the way, Evelyn's handwriting had become part of what home felt like. 2 hours, his driver said. Damian looked up. "Stop. Sir, pull over." The SUV stopped beside a quiet stretch of road. Damian got out. Cold air hit his face. He walked several yards away from the vehicle and stood alone. He had spent the entire trip imagining what he would say. "Come back. No, wrong. The company needs you. Worse, I need you." His father's words came back immediately. "She already knows you need her." The question was whether he wanted her. Damian closed his eyes. He could negotiate with men who hated him. He could walk into rooms where everyone wanted something from him and know exactly what to say, but he had no idea how to speak to one woman who wanted nothing he could buy, and that terrified him. He returned to the SUV. "Keep going." Evelyn's aunt lived outside a small Vermont town surrounded by wooded hills and old farmhouses. It was the kind of place Damian rarely saw. No skyscrapers, no black cars waiting outside restaurants, no private elevators, no men checking exits before sitting down. Evelyn had been there for almost a week, and she still checked her phone every morning. That was the part she hated most. Damian had called 7 times. She hadn't answered. He had sent only one message. "I'm sorry, please let me know you're safe. I won't ask for anything else." She had read it dozens of times, never replied. Her Aunt Margaret placed 2 mugs of tea on the kitchen table. "You're doing it again." Evelyn looked up. "Doing what?" "Looking at your phone. I was checking the time." "There's a clock behind you." Evelyn sighed. Margaret sat across from her. "You still love him." "I know. That wasn't a question." Evelyn stared into her tea. "I spent 5 years telling myself it didn't matter." "Did that work?" "No." "Then perhaps you should stop lying to yourself." Evelyn looked toward the window. "I'm not afraid that Damian doesn't love me." Margaret waited. "I'm afraid he thinks he does because I left." There it was, the truth. "If I go back now, how do I know he wants me? Not the woman who remembers his meetings, not the woman who fixes everything. Me." Margaret reached across the table. "You don't." Evelyn looked at her. "That's comforting. You find out." Before Evelyn could respond, the doorbell rang. Margaret stood. "Are you expecting someone?" "No." The bell rang again. Margaret disappeared into the hallway. Evelyn picked up her mug. Then she heard a man's voice, deep, controlled, painfully familiar. "Good afternoon. I'm looking for Evelyn Parker." The mug nearly slipped from her fingers. "No." Her heartbeat accelerated. Margaret said something Evelyn couldn't hear. Then, "My name is Damian Blackwood." Evelyn stood. For one ridiculous second, she considered running upstairs. She hated herself for it. Margaret appeared in the kitchen doorway. "He's here." "I know. He wants to see you." "I can't." Margaret studied her. "You can. You don't want to." "Please tell him to leave." "Evelyn, please." Margaret saw the panic in her eyes. Not fear of Damian, fear of what Evelyn would do if she saw him. Margaret nodded and walked away. Several minutes passed. The front door opened. Closed. Evelyn exhaled. He was gone. She should have felt relieved. Instead, disappointment hit so hard it almost embarrassed her. She walked toward the window. The black SUV was still parked outside. Damian stood beside it, alone. He hadn't left. 20 minutes passed, then 30. A light rain began falling. Damien stayed outside. Margaret returned. He's still there. Evelyn folded her arms. He has a car. He isn't sitting in it. Why? He said he wouldn't come inside unless you invited him. Evelyn stared at her. Damien Blackwood doesn't wait. Margaret looked toward the window. Apparently, he does now. Evelyn lasted another 10 minutes. Then she grabbed her coat. I'm telling him to leave. Margaret smiled. Of course. Don't. I didn't say anything. Evelyn walked outside. Damien looked up immediately. For several seconds, neither moved. He looked different, tired. His coat was wet across the shoulders, his hair damp from the rain. There were no security men around him, no phone against his ear, no office, no Blackwood Empire. For once, Damien looked like exactly what he was, a man who had driven hundreds of miles because a woman refused to answer his calls. Evelyn, you need to leave. Damien nodded. Okay. She blinked. Okay? If that's what you want. Then go. I will. He paused. After I tell you why I came. Evelyn folded her arms. If you came to offer me my job back. No. The answer was immediate. She stopped. No? I didn't come for my assistant. The rain fell quietly between them. Damien stepped closer, then deliberately stopped several feet away. I came to apologize. You already apologized in your message. No. I said I was sorry. He shook his head. That isn't the same thing as understanding what I did. Evelyn looked away. Victoria shouldn't have spoken to you that way. She isn't the one who hurt me. I know. Evelyn looked back at him. I don't think you do. I've replayed that night every day since you left. And? Damien swallowed. I should have stopped her before she finished the first sentence. Evelyn's eyes burned. Yes. One word. Damien accepted it. I know. I wasn't waiting for you to defend me because I was your employee. Then why? Evelyn's voice trembled. Because after 5 years, I thought I was somebody to you. Damien went still. That was the humiliation, Damien. Tears filled her eyes. Not what Victoria said. She wiped one away angrily. It was looking at you and waiting? Damien lowered his eyes. And you chose to finish your dinner. I thought we would talk afterward. Exactly. Evelyn gave a sad laugh. You assumed I'd still be there. Yes. He didn't defend himself. That was my mistake. Silence stretched between them. I assumed you would always be there, he continued. At the office, in the car, on the phone, walking through my door without knocking. Evelyn looked down. That isn't love, Damien, that's habit. I know. His answer surprised her. Then why are you here? Damien reached into his coat. He removed a small folded piece of paper. Evelyn recognized it immediately, the old lunch note. You kept that? 4 years. Why? I didn't know. He looked at her. Now I think I do. Evelyn's heart began beating faster. When you left, I thought I missed the order. Damien stepped closer. Then we fixed the calendar. Another step. I still missed you. Damien. I hired another assistant. The meetings happen. The cars arrive. The coffee is still terrible, but apparently that can be fixed. Despite herself, Evelyn almost smiled. Damien saw it. His expression softened. But none of that fixed this. What? When something happens, you're still the first person I want to tell. Evelyn stopped breathing for a second. When my father annoys me, I want to hear you tell me I'm exactly like him. A faint smile. When I walk into my office in the morning, I look at the door. His smile disappeared, and every time it stays closed, I understand a little more. Evelyn shook her head. Don't do this. Do what? Say everything now. Why? Because I loved you when you didn't know. Damien froze. It was the first time he had heard it from her. Not his father, not Victoria. Evelyn, she continued before she lost her courage. I loved you when I was making dinner reservations for you and other women. Damien's jaw tightened. I loved you when you asked what you'd do without me and laughed because you thought it was a joke. Her tears returned. And that night, Victoria didn't tell me anything I hadn't already told myself 1,000 times. She looked directly at him. But when you stayed silent, I believed her. Damien instinctively moved toward her. Evelyn stepped back. He immediately stopped. I'm not coming back. I'm not asking you to. If I go back to that office, I'll become the same woman again. Then don't. She stared at him. Damien's voice softened. I don't want the woman who organizes my life back. What do you want? You? The word landed between them. Simple. Terrifying. I want to know what book you read twice because you loved it so much. Evelyn stared at him. I want to know where you go when you're sad, what you wanted before you worked for me, what makes you happy when nobody needs anything from you. Damien shook his head. I know almost everything you've done for me. His voice broke slightly, and almost nothing about you. Evelyn's tears fell freely now. I want to change that. Why? Damien hesitated, because this was the moment. He could say it, but something stopped him. Not cowardice, honesty. I think I'm falling in love with you. Evelyn closed her eyes. But? I'm not asking you to believe me yet. She looked at him again. I've had days to understand something you carried for years. Damien stepped backward. That isn't fair to you. Evelyn had expected persuasion, promises, power. Instead, Damien was giving her space. I'm leaving, he said. Her heart sank unexpectedly. Damien. He stopped. I didn't drive here for an answer. He looked at the note in her hand. I drove here because I needed you to know you were never just my assistant. Evelyn whispered, Then what was I? Damien looked at her for a long time. Someone I was too blind to see until I lost her. He turned and walked away, and Evelyn remained in the rain watching the most powerful man she had ever known leave without demanding anything from her. That frightened her more than if he had begged, because for the first time, she believed him. Damien kept his promise. He didn't call the next day, or the day after. He didn't send flowers. He didn't send gifts. He didn't send anyone to convince her. Instead, he changed the life she had left behind. He started visiting his father without reminders. He called his sister. He personally reviewed the education fund Evelyn had created. When one of his longtime security men asked for time off because his daughter was graduating college, Damien didn't ask how quickly he could return. He asked what she had studied. Small things. Things Evelyn had done for years, not because she had been weak, because she understood something Damien hadn't. Power meant very little if the people around you felt invisible. 3 weeks later, Evelyn returned to New York, not to Blackwood Tower. She accepted a job at a nonprofit educational foundation in Brooklyn that helped low-income teenagers prepare for college. The salary was smaller, the office was tiny, her desk faced a brick wall, and Evelyn loved it. At 5:30, she went home. Her phone stopped ringing. Her evenings belonged to her. Then, one afternoon, the foundation's director entered her office looking terrified. We have a problem. Evelyn looked up. What happened? Our largest donor pulled out. How bad? Almost half the scholarship budget. Evelyn's stomach dropped. How many students? 38. For 2 days, Evelyn called corporations, foundations, former contacts. Nothing. On Monday morning, the director rushed into her office. We found someone. Evelyn stood. Who? Anonymous donor. How much? The director handed her the paperwork. Evelyn looked at the number. It covered the entire program for 3 years. Oh my God. There's one condition. Evelyn looked down. The donor didn't want publicity. No logo, no press release, no naming rights for Blackwood Holdings. Only one request. The scholarship program would be renamed. The Eleanor Blackwood Scholarship Fund. Evelyn's fingers went cold. She knew immediately. That evening, she entered Blackwood Tower for the first time since leaving. Marcus looked up from security. His face broke into a smile. Ms. Parker. Hi, Marcus. Good to see you. You too. She took the elevator upstairs. Sophie sat at her old desk. She stood immediately. Ms. Parker. Evelyn. Sophie smiled. He's inside. For 5 years, Evelyn had never knocked. This time she did. Come in. She opened the door. Damien looked up and froze. For a moment, neither spoke. Evelyn. She walked in and placed the scholarship documents on his desk. Did you do this? Damien glanced down. Yes. Why? They needed the money. You know what I mean? She touched his mother's name. Damien leaned back. My mother grew up poor. Evelyn hadn't known that. She got a scholarship at 17. Without it, she never would have gone to college. His expression softened. It seemed right. Evelyn studied him. Did you do it for me? No. She hadn't expected that answer. I found out about the program because you work there. But those kids have nothing to do with us. Damien looked at the documents. They needed help. Evelyn felt something shift inside her. This wasn't a performance. He hadn't even intended for her to know. You didn't put the Blackwood name on it. I specifically asked them not to. I know. Damien looked at her. Then why are you here? Evelyn hesitated. Because I wanted to see you. For once, Damien Blackwood had absolutely nothing to say. Evelyn smiled. That's new. I wasn't prepared for that sentence. She laughed, and the moment Damien heard it, his entire expression changed. Evelyn saw it, felt it, and knew she was in trouble. Coffee, she said. What? Saturday. Damien stared. Are you asking me out? Don't ruin it. A smile slowly appeared. What time? 11. Where? I choose. Of course. Evelyn walked toward the door, then turned. And Damien? Yes? If you're 2 minutes late, I leave. He smiled. I'll be early. Damien arrived 12 minutes early. Evelyn found him outside a tiny cafe in Greenwich Village. No suit, no driver waiting beside him, no entourage. She stopped. You're early. You threatened me. I established a boundary. That sounded like a threat. Evelyn smiled. Come on. For the first time, she chose the table. She ordered first. She decided where they walked afterward. And Damien asked questions, real questions. What's your favorite book? She told him. Where do you go when you need to think? Central Park? What did you want to do before Blackwood? Evelyn smiled. I wanted to work in education. Damien looked at her. Then why didn't you? Because I started working for an impossible man who apparently needed 24-hour supervision. That sounds exhausting. It was. They laughed. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became a walk. At her apartment, Damien stopped. Can I see you again? Evelyn noticed the wording. Not, I'll see you tomorrow. Not, I'm picking you up Friday. Can I? Yes. Damien's eyes briefly dropped to her lips, then returned to her eyes. He didn't touch her. Good night, Evelyn. She almost hated him for having that much restraint. Good night. Weeks became months. They didn't become a perfect couple overnight. Damien still tried to control things. Evelyn still sometimes slipped into fixing everyone's problems. They argued, they learned, they tried again. But something fundamental had changed. She was no longer his employee. He was no longer her entire life. They were choosing each other. Then Victoria returned. Not physically at first. Through a file. One evening, Damien's security chief entered his office carrying a folder. You need to see this. Damien opened it. Inside were records showing that before Victoria left Blackwood Holdings, she had copied confidential documents connected to Evelyn's new foundation. Damien's expression hardened. Why? We think she wanted Evelyn's new address. Damien stood. Where is Evelyn now? She left work 20 minutes ago. Damien grabbed his coat. Find her. Evelyn was walking home when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Still making him chase you? She stopped. Victoria stood beneath a streetlight. Evelyn turned. What do you want? To understand. Understand what? How you won. Evelyn frowned. I didn't win anything. Victoria laughed bitterly. I had everything. The family, the money, the right name. She stepped closer. I was perfect for him. Damien isn't a prize. Easy for you to say. No. Evelyn's voice softened. I loved him for 5 years without knowing whether he would ever see me. Victoria's expression changed. And now he does. Maybe. Victoria stared at her. You know he loves you. Evelyn said nothing. Victoria gave a sad laugh. He still hasn't said it. No. And you still went back. For coffee. Victoria almost laughed. Coffee? Evelyn smiled. Important things can start small. For several seconds, the anger left Victoria's face. I wanted to hurt you that night. You did. I thought if you disappeared, everything would finally be the way it was supposed to be. Evelyn shook her head. You didn't lose Damien because of me. Victoria looked at her. If he had loved you, my presence wouldn't have changed that. Victoria looked away. Then tires screeched nearby. A black SUV stopped. Damien was out before the driver could open his door. His eyes found Evelyn, then Victoria. "Evelyn, I'm fine." He walked directly toward her. "Did she touch you?" "Damien." "Did she?" Evelyn placed her hand on his arm. "I'm fine." Damien stopped instantly. Victoria stared at them, then she laughed sadly. "There." Damien turned. "What?" "That." Victoria pointed toward Evelyn's hand. 5 years, and you still do it." "Do what?" "You become a different man when she touches you." Evelyn slowly lowered her hand. Victoria looked at Damien. "I thought getting rid of her would make you see me." Damien said nothing. "Instead, after she left, you saw nothing except her." Her voice broke. "She was everywhere because she wasn't there anymore." Damien looked at Evelyn. Victoria shook her head. "I didn't lose when she came back." A sad smile. "I lost years ago." She handed Damien a flash drive. "The documents. I didn't do anything with them." Damien took it. Victoria turned toward Evelyn. "I'm sorry." Evelyn studied her. "I hope someday you find something that doesn't depend on being chosen by a man." Victoria looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe that's where I should start." Then she walked away. Damien immediately turned to Evelyn. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" She raised an eyebrow. "Hello to you too." "I called 3 times." "I know. You could have been in danger." "But I wasn't." "Evelyn, Damien." She put her hands on her hips. "If we're going to keep doing this, you need to learn something." "What?" "You don't give me orders. Even when I think you're in danger, you can tell me you're worried. What's the difference?" "Tone." Damien stared at her, then exhaled. "Fine." Evelyn smiled. "Fine?" "I'm learning." Slowly. "Don't push it." She laughed. Damien went quiet. "What?" "I missed that." "What?" "Your laugh." Her smile faded. Damien stepped closer. "I love hearing you laugh." This time Evelyn didn't step away. Spring came to New York. One evening, after dinner with Evelyn's family, Damien and Evelyn walked outside into her parents' backyard. He looked more nervous than Evelyn had ever seen him. "Are you afraid of my mother?" "No." "You're lying." "A little." Evelyn laughed. They stopped beneath an old apple tree. Damien turned toward her. "Can I tell you something?" "You ask permission a lot now." "I'm practicing." "Then yes." He took a breath. "The night you left, I thought I'd lost the best assistant I would ever have." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Romantic." "Let me finish." She smiled. "Go ahead." "The next day, I thought I'd lost the person who kept my life functioning." He moved closer. "A week later, I realized I had lost the only person who actually knew me." Evelyn's chest tightened. "And when I found you in Vermont, I finally understood something." "What?" "The problem wasn't that you had disappeared from my life." He took her hand. "The problem was that I didn't want the life I had without you in it." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "Damien, for 5 years, you took care of me. It was my job." "No." He shook his head. "I read those files." A faint smile touched his lips. "Half of what you did was absolutely not your job." Evelyn looked down. "It was love." Her eyes closed. "And I'm ashamed you had to leave before I understood that." He gently lifted her hand. "I can't change the 5 years when I didn't see you." "I know. But I can tell you what I see now." Evelyn looked at him. "I see the woman who isn't afraid of me." He smiled. "Still annoying." She laughed through her tears. "I see the woman who cares about people when there's nothing in it for her." His voice softened. "I see the woman who made me better before I even knew I needed to change." Damien took one final step toward her. "And I love you." Everything seemed to stop. No Blackwood Empire, no Mafia, no money, no power, just them. Evelyn had imagined those words for 5 years. In reality, they were simpler and infinitely better. "Say it again." Damien smiled. "I love you, Evelyn Parker." She began to cry. He raised his hand toward her cheek, then stopped, waiting. Evelyn closed the distance herself and pressed her cheek into his palm. "I love you too." Damien closed his eyes. Then he kissed her, slowly, carefully. No possession, no demand, just 5 years of words neither of them had known how to say. 1 year later, Blackwood Tower looked almost exactly the same. Same glass walls, same private elevators, same intimidating security, but Damien had changed. He remembered birthdays now. Usually, he visited his father. He knew the names of his employees' children, and Sophie remained his assistant. One morning, she placed a coffee on his desk. Damien took a sip. Perfect, Sophie smiled. Finally, the door opened without a knock. Damien immediately looked up. Evelyn walked in. Sophie laughed. Some things never change. Evelyn smiled. Am I still the only person allowed to walk in here without knocking? Damien stood. No. She stopped. No? He walked toward her. You're the only person who never has to ask whether she belongs in my life. Evelyn rolled her eyes. That was terrible. I thought it was good. Sophie picked up her folders. I'm leaving before this gets worse. When the door closed, Evelyn held up an envelope. We got approval. For what? The Foundation's new learning center. Damien's face changed. You got it? We got it. He lifted her off the floor. Damien, what? We're in your office. You don't work here anymore. Exactly. He put her down. A simple diamond ring caught the light on her left hand. Damien noticed it every time. He had proposed 2 months earlier, not at a private restaurant, not on a yacht, not in front of cameras, in Evelyn's kitchen after burning dinner while trying to surprise her. She had called it the worst meal of her life. And the best night. Their wedding would be small, family, friends, no business associates she didn't know, exactly the way Evelyn wanted it. She wrapped her arms around Damien's neck. You know what the difference is now? What? I can leave whenever I want. Damien became serious. I know. And I'm still here. He kissed her forehead. I know that too. And that was what Damien Blackwood valued most. Not that Evelyn stayed, but that she chose to stay. Because a year earlier, Damien had believed loyalty was something powerful men could expect. Evelyn taught him otherwise. Loyalty wasn't forcing someone to remain beside you. Love wasn't needing someone to make your life easier. And power wasn't making sure you never lost. Sometimes real strength was admitting you had failed someone, letting them walk away, changing without knowing whether they would ever come back. And if they did come back, never again treating their love like something ordinary. For 5 years, Evelyn Parker had organized Damien Blackwood's life. He had been too blind to understand that all along she had been giving him something far more valuable. Her heart. He had to lose her to finally see it. But when she chose to give it to him again, this time Damien knew exactly what it was worth. Could you forgive Damien after he stayed silent while you were humiliated in front of everyone? Don't forget to subscribe for more.